So Ellen, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. So we've been talking a little bit about what dreams, goals, ambitions people have. Tell me a little bit about your life's dreams and goals and ambitions.
Well, I would have to say that my dreams and goals and ambitions have totally and completely flipped themselves on their head in the last 2 years.
Really, how is that?
Well, for anybody that knows me, I would say that probably for the last 30 years, I've had a desire and a dream to work in the areas of sex trafficking. I wanted to work in Asia. I would say that most of my walk with God has been one where I've just been like, that's where I'm headed, that's where I'm going.
And did you fulfill that dream, that goal?
Yeah, I got here. But I have to say that it really kind of, it all got flipped on its head.
So how, after 30 years of in the waiting and getting there, how were things flipped on their head?
Well, God asked me one day, did I command you, Ellen, ever to do this?
That is a very deep question.
And I would have to say that probably for the last 30 years, I thought God commanded me to do this. I thought that he was directing that every prophetic word, everything that I was doing in my walk with God pointed to the area of, I want to work with sex trafficking. And so I was sure, and all the counsel I was receiving and everything I thought I was reading and all of this study and that God was actually saying, this is your calling, this is your destiny for life.
And then when you got there,
I got here and I began to realize how unfulfilling I felt. I felt completely like the work I was doing was not fulfilling. I was realizing that God had not commanded me to do this, which is a complete and total switch.
mm-hmm.
And so it's almost kind of like I had to die to all of the 30 years I had invested in this dream.
Oh, wow. It sounds like you're saying there's much more free will when it comes to a ministry or a calling, or when we start to believe that this is what God wants for us.
Yeah, I mean, I realized God didn't command it. And so I had to kind of work through that because I had set my sights on the fact that I was being obedient to God, that I had waited. I had done all sorts of different ministries. I waited before I came to Asia. I was like very big about, look, I was obedient, like I was following what, I felt God wanted. And then when I realized that God hadn't commanded it, then it was like, well, then why did I pursue this then for 30 some years? And it took probably about 6 months of peeling the layers when God just said, you chose this, Ellen. You chose to do this line of work, and I partnered with you, but I never once commanded you to do this. This was not a calling and a destiny that I actually had on your life. It was something you wanted to do, which then created a whole upheaval of like, well, then what have I been doing? What have I been listening to? What, was I not hearing God? Was I not, was I delusional?
Mm-hmm.
Was I misinterpreting the words of the Lord? All the counsel I received, was it all false? Like, can I hear the voice of God? I mean, it just stirred up a whole lot of questions when I realized, my gosh, God didn't command me to do this.
Oh, wow. It sounds like you almost, formulated your entire life for 30 years around that lens
Everything.
Of calling.
Everything was to get me to Asia to work in red light districts. So inner healing I did was, yes, personally for me, with the outflow of, I'm going to bring inner healing to the areas of the red light. Anything I did, from different ministries I chose to be a part of, things I studied online, different forums I went to, conferences I went to, everything was geared around sex trafficking. and that this was truly the call and the plan of God on my life. And in fact, I look back on it now, I cut people out of my life in the name of that call. I cut people down to size in the name of where I was going. Like, my whole focus was on that, and I lost a lot of things along the way.
So it sounds like a person, when they are so focused on a calling or a ministry, they miss out on parts of life or a big part of life.
I missed so much out on life. Yeah, totally.
Wow.
Because I was just so focused. I would have to say honestly that my life, the way I viewed it really was life would start for me when I got to Asia and was in this calling that I was sure God had commanded me to do. That was when life was going to start. So everything was preparatory all the way up to get to this point. And I realize now, looking in hindsight, how much of life I lost. The joys, relationships, so many things, because I was so focused to get to here.
Oh, wow. So now that everything has shifted and shaken with that moment of God asking you that question,
Yeah.
how do you now see life?
Well, I have no plans.
Okay.
I would have to say that I'm no longer striving. Life is no longer a destination for me. I got to get somewhere. So the striving's gone out of it. Sometimes it can look like I'm apathetic to life, but I'm not. I'm learning how to be. I'm learning how to be still inside. Because I was going. I mean, imagine you think you need to get to this point, so you keep going. So life for me has really, the brakes have been put on life for me. Everything has come to a standstill. And I'm smelling the flowers more. I'm enjoying the sunsets. I'm enjoying a cup of coffee. I'm enjoying conversations with people. Because I'm not so focused on this thing I gotta get to. It's like now every day is new. It's just like I'm doing life out of being, out of stillness, not out of striving, not out of working, not trying to make something for myself, not trying to do, it's a quieter life, and it actually suits me a lot better.
It almost sounds like it's been a reversal, where you talked about the destination being where you find joy starting life, but now, and rather than the journey, but now the journey is your new focus.
Oh yeah, everything's about the journey.
And that is where life is truly giving you joy.
Yeah, that's where I'm finding joy. You know, when you get so focused, like ministry can become kind of like the corporate world, where you're climbing ladders or trying to find position or trying to find where you fit, and you know, where does God want me, and like this whole thing. And that's not the way ministry was ever meant to be. It's not about numbers. It's not about positions. It's not about any of that. It's not about destinations. It's about journeying. It's about partnering with God in the day-to-day. And I think what's happened to me now is I'm seeing the day-to-day in my life versus always focused so much on an end goal to get there. And I don't know if I will return to doing this line of work. I might not. I enjoy it, but my life is like everything's come to a standstill, but there's a lot in me that's expanding. Different areas of life that I want to explore and want to journey in, versus it was this one direction all these years. And so it feels like there's a lot more paths for me to go down, a lot of different things for me to explore, different places and spaces. I'm definitely enjoying life more than I've ever enjoyed it before, because I'm seeing life, I'm experiencing life,
Mm-hmm.
not waiting to get to a life down over here in some fantasy world.
Wow. Now that is definitely a reversal. And in that, it sounds like you are no longer, I guess, striving, like you said, because there's no
No.
longer that end destination. that
No,
end
there's
goal.
no drive to get somewhere. I'm just being.
Do you find a greater peace in that?
There's always a peace with that. Always a peace when you're not striving and working. I'm just being. See, out of the stillness, I'm going into the sabbatical that I'm doing. And that's so of the Lord, the sabbatical. Because it will be out of the still place. It'll be out of the quiet place. It'll be out of the less busy, less working place that I'll know where I'm to go and where I'm to put my next, my whatever it is, whether it be ministry, maybe it won't be ministry. I don't know. But it's out of this still place that I will hear the voice speak. Because I no longer am distracted by this thing I call destiny or calling or trying to find my place in this world. Our place in the world is the bee.
That sounds just so restful.
It's
So,
all from a position of rest, yes.
and even something that so many people who have a calling of ministry that they're always pushing forward, not actually doing what you're doing.
You can miss a
And-
lot. You can miss a lot when you're always pushing, always striving.
And even with, when you talked about how missing out on life, and now you are no longer doing that. And I often wonder how many of us really do miss out on life, because we really are moving forward.
And I think that that's maybe where Christendom needs to revamp itself. It feels like everybody's trying to find their destiny,
Okay.
find their position, find their platform, find where they can speak and where they're going to minister and they can do all these things. And, I'm not against ministry schools, and I'm not against all the things that I've done over my life, all the different journeys and ministries and things I've done were good. I needed to go through all that.
Mm-hmm.
But then there comes a place of, you realize that there is levels of futility in a lot of that too. Not in every area, but there's a lot of futility with it. And you're just kind of working and working and working, and people are doing ministry like they do a 60-hour week, and it's like, is this what really God wants? Does God want you working 60 hours in a ministry? Does he want me like I did, where I lost so much of friendships and relationships and so many things in the name of this call that I thought I had? No, that's not kingdom. God is about people. He's about connecting with people. And so I think that there's something to be said, I guess, and we can wrap this up and maybe, do this in a second video at another time. But I think there's just something to be said about God leading us beside still waters.
Yes.
And stillness does not mean an absence of movement, but it's how you do movement now. And so for me, stillness is where movement is going to be birthed from, versus movement is where I'm birthed from, and I'm trying to find that place of peace and stillness. It's a total reversal. And like I said, that could be for another video.
Wonderfully said. Thank you.
You're welcome.